Okay, so we're going to look at some more with limits here. So this says to find the limit as delta x approaches 0 of f of x plus delta x minus f of x over delta x for each of the following. So I'm trying to do this with this being my f of x function. So I'm trying to do this problem. I write the limit as delta x approaches 0. Check. I took care of that. Now I have to look at this. Well, here's f of x. So if I'm trying to do f of x plus delta x, that means wherever I have an x, I have to replace that x. So I'm going to have to replace this x right here with x plus delta x. So I've done that. 5, x plus delta x gets replaced minus 3. All of what I just wrote here, all of this right here, is just this part. Now I have to do minus f of x. So I have to look down here and see what is f of x. And it's 5x minus 3. All over delta x. Before we go any further, let me show you again what we're doing. We're writing this part, that's our problem. We're doing this part. So wherever I have an x, that x gets replaced with x plus delta x. The 5 and the minus 3 stayed the same. Then I had to do minus f of x, which was this whole function, over delta x. You always want to check this first before you go any further. So now I'm doing the limit as delta x approaches 0, distribute the negative. And so now we're going to simplify. So 5x minus 5x cancels. Negative 3 plus 3 cancels. So I have 5 delta x over delta x. My whole goal is to be able to plug in 0 for delta x. But I couldn't do it back here. I would get 0 in the denominator and 0 in the numerator. But now I can once I cancel these two out. And so my answer would be 5. So the limit, well, the limit equals 5 is how I could write that. So now let's look at the next one. We're doing the limit as delta x approaches 0. I have to do this first. So I'm done with this. Now I go to this. F of x plus delta x. Well, here's my x. The x has to get replaced with x plus delta x minus f of x over delta x. Now, we've done some problems similar to this. To get this simplified, I have to look at my common denominator. My denominator is x plus delta x.
Excuse the interruption.
And
Elizabeth
x.
Tinkler, if you're in the building, please come to the front office. Thank you.
So I'm going to have to multiply through by x and x plus delta x on top. And whatever I do to the top, I have to do to the bottom. Let's stop for just a minute and look again at what I did. X plus delta x is a denominator and x is a denominator. So my common denominator is x times x plus delta x. So now to simplify this, I can't plug in 0 for delta x right now. I get 0 over 0. That's why I'm doing this more work. I have to distribute this and distribute this. So I have the limit as delta x approaches 0 of 3x times x plus delta x over x plus delta x for this term. For my next one, I have minus 3, distribute this out, not distribute, but just multiply over x. And then on the bottom, I just have these. I have an x and a delta x and x plus delta x. Look again. This is in the numerator. This is really over 1. So I'm doing 3x, x plus delta x over that, minus 3x times x plus delta x over that. On the bottom, I'm just putting the x first, so it's not delta x, x. So x, delta x, and that. So now within this, I'm going to simplify. These are going to cancel out, and those are going to cancel out. That's the whole reason I did this, because now watch. Now we're going to have 3x, and here I'm going to have minus, I'm doing a distribute, minus 3x, minus 3 delta x, all over x delta x times x plus delta x. So now these are going to be 0. I have negative 3 delta x over x delta x, x plus delta x. These delta x's can now cancel. And now I can finally plug in my 0 for delta x. So it's going to be negative 3 over, this is 0. So now all I've got is x times x, which is going to be x squared. And that would be our limit. Make sure you can do this kind of thing. There will be one of this type on your quiz. So make sure you can do it. All right, let's look down here. Same kind of thing. There won't be one this tough on your quiz, but I just want to help you to get it set up because we will be doing it in the future. So the limit as delta x approaches 0, I have to do this. So I look at my f of x function. Wherever I have those x's, I have to replace those x's with x plus delta x. All of this is the same as that right there. Now I have to do minus f of x. Well, that's just this right here that I was given. So I did that. All over delta x. When I square this out, I'm going to come over here to the side, x plus delta x times x plus delta x. That will give me x times x is x squared. The outers give me x delta x. The inners give me x delta x. That gave me 2x delta x. The last times the last gives me delta x squared. Distribute this out. Distribute this out. Now if we've done this correctly, a lot of things should simplify. Because back here, if I plugged in delta x, I got 0 over 0. You can test it and see, but we know we will. So x squared minus x squared is 0. Positive 2x minus 2x is 0. So now I'm left with 2x delta x plus delta x squared plus 2 delta x all over delta x. Hello. Hey. Yeah. Friday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Can I call you right back? Okay, thanks. Bye. So we got that. So now I'm going to factor out a delta x, and I have 2x plus delta x plus 2 all over delta x. So now the delta x's are going to cancel. I'm going to plug in 0 now because now I can. So when I plug in 0, I'm going to get my limit equals 2x plus 2. And there we go. Okay? All right, so if there's anything that was confusing, just go back and watch. But again, it's like we're working back and forth between the function and the limit. This is the problem we're doing, but we're doing it for this function. This is the problem we're doing, but we're doing it with this function. Okay.